In today's video, I want to talk about why neurotypical empathy often feels like a control tactic to autistic partners. We're going to look at the hidden pressure behind, "I'm just trying to understand you," which is a very typical statement coming from a neurotypical. So there's a moment that happens in a lot of neurodiverse relationships that almost nobody talks about. The NT spouse leans in and says, "I'm just trying to understand how you feel." And instead of getting connection, the ASD partner shuts down. Not because he doesn't care, not because he's cold, but because somehow that moment feels like pressure. It feels like expectation. It feels like control. And if you're the neurotypical partner, that can feel very confusing and even hurtful. And why wouldn't it? Because in your mind, you're doing the right thing. You're showing empathy. You're trying to connect. But what if what feels like empathy to you feels like regulation pressure to your ASD partner? So today, we're going to flip a deeply ingrained narrative, not to blame, not to shame, but to help you see something that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's talk about the empathy paradox. We're going to start right here. Neurotypical empathy is often taught as the gold standard of connection. Feel with me, meet me emotionally. I want to have deep emotional connection with you. Show me that you understand. And inside neurotypical relationships, that usually works. But in a neurodiverse relationship, something very different happens. Empathy can quietly shift from connection to expectation to pressure, because it's not just, "I want to understand you." It can land as, "I need you to feel this the way I do. I need you to respond emotionally so I can feel okay. I need alignment before we can move forward. I need for you to connect with me and mirror me at an emotional level." Okay, that's where the paradox begins. What feels like emotional closeness to the neurotypical partner can feel like emotional control to the autistic partner. Let's talk about when empathy becomes a regulatory tool. We're going to slow this down and really look at it. In many neurotypical communication styles, empathy isn't just about connection. It's also a way to regulate the interaction. Think about phrases like, "Well, that really hurt my feelings," or "I just need you to understand how this affected me," or "Can you just acknowledge my emotions?" Okay. Well, on the surface, these are completely valid. But underneath, there's often an implicit goal. If you emotionally align with me, this situation will feel resolved. So empathy becomes a bridge to resolution. But here's where the wiring difference matters, because for your autistic spouse, emotional processing is not always immediate. Emotional expression may not match internal experience, and logical resolution often comes before emotional processing. So when empathy is required first, it can feel like to the ASD partner, "I'm being asked to perform something I haven't processed yet. I'm being evaluated based on emotional output," or "I can't move forward unless I do this your way." And now we're no longer in connection, we're in compliance pressure. Let's talk about the hidden demand inside empathy. This is where things get even more important, because what neurotypical partners don't realize is this: empathy, when it's expected, becomes a demand. And for many autistic partners, especially those with demand sensitivity or PDA profiles, demands trigger something immediate and automatic. Not defiance, not stubbornness, but a nervous system response. The moment it feels like, "Well, you should respond this way emotionally," the brain can register loss of autonomy, loss of control, risk of getting it wrong, and what happens next? You guessed it. Your ASD partner shuts down, withdraws, has flat affect, he's irritated, gets defensive, and he becomes emotionally avoidant. But underneath, something very different is happening. The system is protecting itself. Now let's talk about why this triggers masking. We're going to take this one step deeper. When empathy becomes an expectation, autistic partners don't just resist it, they adapt to it. And this is where masking comes in. Masking isn't just about social behavior, it's about relational survival. So the autistic partner learns, say the right emotional phrase, mirror what they need to hear, act like they want you to act, perform empathy correctly. Not because it's fake, but because it's safer than getting it wrong. But here's the cost. When empathy becomes performance, authentic processing gets bypassed, emotional fatigue increases, resentment quietly builds, and connection becomes conditional. So now both partners lose. The neurotypical spouse feels, I'm not getting real connection here. And the autistic partner feels, I can't be real and be accepted at the same time. Now let's talk about the control you didn't know you were using as an NT spouse. This part's going to be uncomfortable because it's where real growth happens. Because if we zoom out, what we often call empathy is sometimes this. I need you to feel this with me so I can feel settled. You have to say and do certain things in order for me to be okay inside. And you have to avoid saying and doing those things in order for me to be okay inside. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. It's human. But it does create a subtle dynamic. And I'm talking to the NT spouses out there. Your emotional state becomes dependent on your ASD spouse's emotional response. That's dangerous. And now, without intending to, you've placed your ASD spouse in a regulatory role, which to him can feel like emotional pressure, performance expectation, and relational control. Not because you're being controlling, but because the structure of the interaction requires alignment. And alignment for someone with a different processing system can feel like a loss of self. Now I'm going to do a little reframe here. We're going to go from emotional alignment to autonomy. So having said what I've said up to this point, what do we do instead? Okay, well, we don't remove empathy. We don't try to change your neurotypical brain wiring. We redefine how it shows up. And here's the shift. Go from feel this with me to let me show you my experience without requiring yours to match it. And you can go from I need emotional validation first to we can solve this even if we process it differently. Instead of why aren't you reacting, try what's your processing path here. This creates something powerful. Relational autonomy. Don't forget that term, relational autonomy, where both partners are allowed to process differently. Emotional timing is not forced. Logic and emotion are both valid entry points, and connection is not dependent on sameness. And here's the surprising part. When pressure drops, authentic empathy actually increases in your ASD spouse. Now let's look at some practical language shifts. I want to give you a few real-life rewrites you can use immediately. Instead of, why don't you understand how I feel? Try, I want to share how this impacted me. No pressure to respond right away. Instead of, I need you to validate me. Try, it would help me to feel heard, but I'm okay if you need time. Instead of, well, you're being unemotional. Try, I think we're processing this differently. Help me understand your side. These small shifts remove demand and invite connection instead. Now, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Most neurotypical partners are not trying to control, they're trying to connect. But connection, when filtered through expectation, can feel like control to someone wired differently. And when you understand that, you stop chasing emotional sameness and start building something much stronger, which would be mutual understanding without pressure. That's where real connection lives. Now, if this helped you see your relationship differently, subscribe, because we're going to keep unpacking the patterns that look like problems, but are actually differences in wiring. And once you see the wiring, everything starts to make sense. I'll see you in the next video. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you. Hey guys, this is Mark. Some of you may not know that I have a lot of books on Amazon. So if you like my videos, you'll like my books. I have several for ASD spouses, for NT spouses, and for the neurodiverse couple. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this link. Feel free to click on that link and see what's available. I'm sure you'll find something that applies to you. So if you're struggling in your neurodiverse marriage, help is available, one click away.